Good morning, Geelong. Brought to you by www.guestmedia.com.au.
Thanks again for joining us on the show. Well, newly appointed netball coach of the Newtown Chilwell Football Netball Club, I think I've got that right, Scott, is joining us live in the studio. Scott Nichols. Scott, thanks for coming in.
Thanks very much, Naomi. It's a pleasure to be here.
Congratulations firstly on your appointment. Now, a bit of a mouthful to get out, but you are the new coach of the Newtown Chilwell Football Netball Club. How
Correct.
does that feel?
Yeah, really good. Yeah, I'm pleased to be involved with a progressive club like Newtown for 2009.
Fantastic. Now, can you tell us a bit about how that came about? Because the netball, the football, it's all just finished. You think
Sure.
there'd be a bit of time off, but no.
Yeah, well, I this year I coached in 2008. I coached in the Victorian State League in the Championship Division with Palladians Club, a Melbourne-based club, and had a few offers to coach Championship Division or State League again next year. But given the fact that my wife and I have just had a baby boy who's now 6 weeks old, 6 weeks old tomorrow, I decided that I wouldn't do the trips up and down the highway for next year, and so I started looking for potential positions in the local leagues for next year. Had a bit of interest from probably 5 or 6 clubs, and met with Newtown and a few others, and decided that Newtown was the best fit for me.
What was the reason for you going there?
Yeah, I grew up in Newtown. My parents are still there, so I know the club rooms. I know the area really well. I know quite a few of the young players in the A grade and B grade squads, so I knew a bit of the history. I'm really impressed with the future plans that the club have got, both in terms of on the court, but also in terms of the facilities development that they've got on the go coming up in the next sort of 18 months or so. And just like the feel of the place, think that I can make a difference to what they've got going, and really have a really good base to work from.
Great. Well, that's a pretty good wrap for the club. Now, you'll be coaching the A grade and the B grade.
Yeah, correct.
So both sides didn't have the best of seasons, is that correct?
No, they sort of finished sort of towards the bottom of the ladder, probably about 8th or 9th both, I think. And in talking to the people involved in the club, I think there are a couple of particular issues as to why that happened. Things that I think are easily addressed with a bit of specific coaching and training, and maybe even a bit of recruitment into certain areas on the court to try and bolster up some of the talent that's definitely there.
Okay, so we were speaking just before about some of the players who've already got a great player base, and also some young players in the sides. Yep. What do you expect to bring to those teams?
I think in terms of my experience, I can bring to them I'm well known as a skills coach, so I definitely concentrate on making sure that players have the basic skills right. I think if you can play the game with the skills intact, you can do anything. But I'll also bring to the club some systems and some drills and some tactical nous to put on the court in terms of trying to get them play a bit smarter as well, and play their positions well, and play as a combination. Okay,
it all sounds very promising. I look forward to seeing it on the court next year. Now, what about your pre-season? Because obviously you'd be used to quite an extensive pre-season with previous roles that you've had. What do you plan to do this season?
In talking to the club in the last couple of weeks, that they've indicated that there are a few people around the club that have the sort of the sports training, physical education type background. So I'll definitely be tapping into their experience. I think it's really important to have a good pre-season that combines both fitness elements but also skills elements. I've been involved with places before where I think the focus has been too much on fitness, and then the skill work has been too late in the process.
I was just going to ask you that, because often when you hear about pre-seasons, it is the fitness getting ready for the season, but they do seem to neglect the skills training.
Oh, absolutely. And I think what you then find is that the skills training is still happening into week 3 and 4 of the season, and you've lost the first quarter of the season in terms of still getting your team skills up to date, and getting your system set and so on and so forth. So I'll be looking to get the system stuff happening and the skill stuff happening pretty early on.
Fantastic. Now, I'm thinking they're going to have a pretty tough pre-season, but no doubt it will be worth it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You touched on the facilities just before. What's in plans for the facilities down there?
The netball facilities at Newtown are fantastic. They've got 2 very recently created courts or updated courts. And they've also got some grand plans for some facilities that are specific to the netball area, so change rooms and offices and those sorts of things. And there's also plans for some further development of the football club rooms. So they've got a big 12 or 18 months ahead of them in terms of some fundraising activities to try and get those facilities up to scratch.
Fantastic. Now, what do you enjoy? This is more of a personal question. What is the most enjoyable aspect of the netball for you?
I think what I get out of coaching is basically just being able to see players progress throughout a season, to get to see players build through their skill set, and compare how they've gone at, say, the start of a pre-season to how they end up at the end of the season. And just to see people enjoy themselves. I think, especially in some of the local footy netball leagues, I think people tend to maybe take the game a little bit too seriously. And if you're not enjoying it, you won't play well and you won't sort of hang around for a long while. So it's about making sure that their skills are intact and going forward, but also that people are enjoying themselves.
And I'm sure, no doubt, you are the person to help them with their skills, because I was having a quick look at your resume before, and I could not believe the amount of experience you have had in coaching sides. Do you want to take us a bit through that, what you've been doing the last few years?
Well, I've actually, sadly or otherwise, been coaching netball for more than half my life. Wow. Started down at GNA, the Geelong Netball Association, and sort of did my basic work there, and then worked up through the ranks of doing various things in terms of I coached Queenscliff in the Bellarine for a couple of years very early on, and then I got into Grovedale initially when the Geelong Footy Netball League started up, and did that for 3 years. But since then I've concentrated on doing the Netball Victoria Zone Academy program. I was involved with that for 7 years. For most of that time as head coach of the Central West Academy, which is the program whereby some of the elite kids in the area are identified and given specialist coaching to try and get them into state teams and those sorts of things. And then more recently got back into State League with the Flyers, and then this year with Palladians.
Okay, fantastic. Now, you were, as you said, coaching in State League.
Yeah.
Not this year, but of course we know about the new Geelong Netball Club. Sorry.
Yep.
Do you know much about that? Have you been involved with that at all?
I've only seen it from a bit of afar, but I know that Susan Meany is heavily involved in setting it up, and Di Honey and Eloise Southby-Halbish are coaches who are on board, and they're fantastic people to have on board. They've got relevant experience from playing and coaching at national and state levels. So I think if they're involved, the club can only be in good hands, and I'm sure they'll do well from there. And
it sounds like Newtown Chilwell will be in good hands as well with you next year. Thank you so much, Scott, for joining us on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you in.
Thanks for having me.
Best of luck, no worries at all. And that brings us to the end of our very first Geelong Breakfast Show. You've been joining us for our first program. We hope to see you again next week at the same time. Thanks again for your company.